So, to your love and applause, I'm going to bring up my first speaker, and I'm very excited to have this gentleman with us because he really is the father of the microchip in India. He pioneered silicon chip design in the country. He's worked as a scientist in very many different grades, but I mean the thing is, he was behind India's first indigenous MOS integrated circuit chip, and also the first indigenous C-dot chip, and the first indigenous manufactured in the country microprocessor. He served as a central electronics engineer. He served as the director of the Central Electronics Engineering Research Institute, also in Pilani, for a number of years as well. That's enough of my introduction. I want him to come up here and introduce himself and talk to us about the challenges and opportunities in millennial education. So please join me in welcoming the wonderful Dr. Chandrasekhar, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, come on. Let's give him a proper round of applause, people. Put some energy into it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to be talking to all the educators. Well, we really look at the question we need to ask is, what is so different about millennial education? Let me begin. So, what is the millennial context? Is there really a millennial context or it's a hype? When you look at it, you do find that there is indeed a switch of context, there is a change. So what are the challenges for education in the new millennium? And I call it education version Z. Today we have software, we recognize that things change, versions change. We always thought education is education, but education has versions. So this is for the Z generation, so it's education version Z. So the question is there a change of expectation from education? That's a very serious question. And is there an associated repositioning of objectives? In India, we always say that Macaulay designed the system for education. Well, there was a purpose to it. He designed it for a certain purpose. There have been other designs of education which have been for different purposes. So the question is there a change of expectations from education? And has there been a repositioning of objectives, which is thanks to millennium where we are? Is there a consequent challenge for methodology? We just saw that students don't listen, or they want to learn their way. What's their way? And what is it that would make it to them? How can technology be effectively leveraged for education? Because so much technology is around us. So how can we effectively leverage technology for educating the Z generation through education version Z? And do the existing organizational structures really fit in, or they also need to be relooked at? So this is not a millennial question, this is a question forever. What is education? We all have had a lot of classical answers from great thinkers. Why am I asking that question again? Because something has changed. Today, the world is globalized. Equality of opportunity is being talked about. The loss of opportunity that countries face because of non-quality education being delivered to their youngsters is a big, big issue. So I would try to sort of give this working definition that education is meant to create a better collective future in a continuing manner, continually. I know this is not the classical definition, but I would say this is the definition that guides policy. Because education today is such a public subject. It's not a question of an individual's choice. Governments put money in it, trusts put money in it, private sector puts money in it. There has to be an objective. So, the objective really is to create a better collective future continually. So education has a creative purpose, first of all, because it's supposed to create a better collective future. That of creating a better collective future. And that also on a continuing basis. So it's not stagnant, it's not one time. There is also this important element of collectivity. Collectivity is more recent in education. When I say recent, it is not even a century old. In our country, in India, it's not even 50, 60 years old. So there is also this important element of collectivity, better collective future. This involves the aspects of content. The content should suit collectivity. The scale, when we are talking of collectivity, the scale is very big. The spread, the inclusion in the matter of education, all those questions come. So, in the millennial education, we see that imagination and enterprise are now the focus points. As I said again, deviating from the classical definitions, the target of education in new millennium is creativity, imagination and enterprise. So education thus must systematically nurture the capacity for imagining and proposing improvements in multiple dimensions of our collective life. It also must impart a sense of responsibility in the student for expanding knowledge and practices to achieve those improvements and offer that knowledge to the society. Today's society has so much stake in education that you really, as I mentioned, you cannot anymore use classical definitions of bringing out the best in an individual. You have to move away from the individual-based focus to the collective focus in education for a better collective future. And so you require people who would imagine that also on a continuing basis, because change is something we recognize so well because of its speed, that change is now central. Everybody realizes that, everybody recognizes that. And there is an expectation that change for the better will continue and ever faster. So it is this aspect that also needs to be brought in. So education is really shaping the future. The world we live in is continuously changing and evolving as a result of human endeavor. Never ever has the world changed so rapidly as it has changed during the last 10 years. During the last century. So on whatever time scale you see, the change has been accelerating, and that change has been brought about by human endeavor. So it is the human endeavor that has been changing the world, shaping the world around us, and this process is accelerating, it is going faster and faster. So we need to realize and register the current reality of human life and work from there for further betterment of collective life through the organization, structure and processes of education. So what would be quality metrics for education? Education must help students in becoming sensitive observers of the reality of life around us and not pass it by. We have not always used that as a quality metric. But in the new millennium, that's a very, very important thing. That we train and educate youngsters to be sensitive observers of reality of life, our collective life around us, and not just pass it by, be uncaring. Education's processes must help in identifying our individual areas of choice for being Imagineers. And like many words, the millennial generation's word you saw, you might find the word Imagineer. So it's a person who imagines and then engineers, does something about it. So education processes must help us in identifying our individual areas of choice, because as individuals we are different. For being Imagineers and entrepreneurs, active agents for improvement of collective life. Collective life is the focus. Imagination is the tool. Becoming an Imagineer by identifying what area is it that appeals to me and where I would like to build my technical capabilities and then offer them to society. As an entrepreneur is what the new millennial education is all about. Education must help us in the process of self-discovery, finding out our life's calling, our individual sense of purpose, our place to be under the sun. So education needs to move away from a standard kind of process through which we impart a lot of information, data, and knowledge. But it has to have this element. One of the reasons why the younger generation would not listen is that they have, they are more secure than their parents were. And the parents were more secure than their grandparents were. Anyone who is more secure, he wants to explore. He doesn't want to get constrained. It's the time when there were ration shops, whatever they dispersed, we would all take it, stand in a queue, gratefully accept. Today, we won't even look at some of the stuff that was being dished out. We would like to choose. So, as society becomes prosperous, as security increases, an individual wants his individuality to unfold. And we should not misunderstand it either as indifference or saying he doesn't care, he doesn't listen. As Rabindranath Tagore said, don't limit the person because he is born in a different world. Don't limit him simply by your perceptions. So this process of self-discovery, finding one's calling, today ample opportunities are there. So many areas are there. And as I said, you can afford to explore and you would like to explore. So education should now look at that aspect and should cater to it. Well, we always have history and tradition, and very often this question comes to mind, is that a decade or is that a set? So we have so much mass of existing knowledge, experience, social, historical, literary, civilizational, spiritual, scientific, technological, economic, and even more. How to use it constructively. The purpose of education is not simply to pass on to the new generation whatever was there that was dished down to us or which was handed down to us. Because a lot of things were handed down to us without critical thinking. They were given to us simply because they were the tradition. Today's generation will not accept it. We accepted many things because they were given to us as given. They were part of our culture, they were part of our, family history, or they were part of whatever. We accept it. The new generation will not accept it. So, whatever from the past you want to pass on to the new generation should be examined, interpreted, understood, and internalized through the process of critical thinking, inquiry, and debate as a part of educational process. Next generation will not accept it directly, and they should not. So, whatever you have should be put to scrutiny. It should not be taught as sacrosanct, and we should not start saying just because they don't do it, because it ought to be done, because we were doing it, because we were told that it should be done and we were doing it. And they don't listen. It would not work. In a way, it's a better situation, truly speaking. Because so many practices, so many things that we follow unthinkingly, because they were just given to us at an impressionable age and we are carrying them. The new generation will not do that, and I'm glad they are not doing it. Only then the past knowledge becomes meaningful for the present, serving as one component of the world from which crystallizing solutions for today's context becomes possible. So, past knowledge is required, but only after critical thinking, inquiry, and debate, reinterpretation, interpretation for the modern context, and then what survives, and what is understood, and what is internalized. That serves as a raw material from which solutions for today's problems can be worked upon. Of course, the other ingredient is human creativity. So it's not just the past knowledge, it's past knowledge and human creativity, and the past knowledge which has withstood critical thinking, inquiry, and which has been interpreted appropriately. For science, technology, engineering and mathematics, which has been my professional areas of work, I clearly see design-oriented STEM education. So millennial education has to focus on developing the spirit of inquiry, which is in all subjects, and proposition of solutions. That's extremely important. I do find many students coming who can rattle out what they have been taught. But you give them a problem to solve and they flop. It's simply because that aspect of education has not been done. Sorry about that. I thought my phone was not working here. When I wanted it, it wasn't working. But now it is okay. So design-oriented education that blends in-depth subject understanding and imagination. These two things are extremely important. You need to understand a subject in depth. And so design-oriented education, by design-oriented education I mean an education that blends an in-depth subject understanding and imagination to propose solutions. Not just understanding, but also ability to propose solutions and then analytics to evaluate those solutions to choose the best for ourselves. So these three aspects are required. You imbibe the knowledge so that you can use it as an ingredient in your process of creativity. And then you use your creativity and imagination to propose a solution. And then you should be able to step back and dispassionately do the analytics and analyze which solution is the best solution. In fact, in the creative process, you should be able to throw up many alternate solutions and then step back and then look at what is the best solution. That is the need of the new system. Absolutely in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's required. So, if I cannot creatively apply my knowledge to problem solving, then I have neither really learned nor truly understood, and certainly not internalized what I think I have learned. There is a difference between thinking what I have learned and actually having really learned something. If you have really learned something, it comes effortlessly through your imaginative processes to come up with solutions. Otherwise, it is just kind of a storehouse that is lying in your mind, and you can just recall it when somebody asks you a question that matches a matter. The other important thing is teamwork in cross-national and cross-cultural teams and spirit of collaboration across disciplines are other major demands of the millennium, and education needs to foster. World has become a small place. You have cross-national teams, you have cross-cultural teams. Many new frontier areas really are no longer classical areas like electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, or what have you, but they are cross-disciplinary. And so you need to foster that spirit. You need to train to work in those environments. And humanistic studies of culture, the diversity, and emphasis on shared future of human race are required to be underscored and worked upon through education. It's extremely important. Particularly for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, it is very important that the new issues of cultural diversity, shared future for human race, all of those are looked at in a very humanistic way, as opposed to being given as handouts from our childhood. So, we also have so much new technology and we look at new tools. The question I am asking is it stale vegetables or a shiny cart? A tool is a cart on which you sell your stuff, through which you dispense your stuff. So, is it stale vegetables or a shiny cart, or is it very different? ICT has put new tools in the hands of educators, but have we understood ICT's full potential for education? And my hunch is no, we haven't. We are still pushing the stale old vegetables via the shiny high-speed ICT cart. So we need to explore creative ways of building and presenting experiential learning environments using information and communication technology, including more and certainly more purposeful use of virtual reality. Best learning is experiential learning. So we need to build, and ICT technologies now permit, but earlier it was very difficult to build a model because the model was a mechanical thing, you had to put it together, there was a cost to it, there was time spent on it, and one model was just one model, it couldn't be shared across million copies. But ICT permits you to do that. Why did we build models? Because they systematically helped us step by step to understand what we were doing, and we were blending understanding and creativity. So understanding and creativity both were getting blended when we were building models. And they were physical kind of things that we could touch and feel, from which the learning that we got was something very, very solid. Today, you can build ICT models through virtual reality platforms. Are we building them? My answer is they are not enough. And so fresh vegetables on a shiny cart is what we require, not just stale vegetables on a shiny cart. Don't just say we have a medium through which we can dispense information more rapidly, so I'll still take the old book, put it in sort of an electronic form and dispense it. That's not the best thing. So we have to tell this story. ICT-based learning environments must build new contents that tell the story of creative hypothesizing, its experimental testing, hypothesis modification and expansion, and further generalizations, and their rigorous testing that have led to the development of many model, widely used ideas in many domains. In many domains, there are ideas that have been built up over generations. We give to the students those ideas as given. We say, this is it. We give them as statements, we give them as facts. What is required is that we give them the process through which those ideas have been generated. And those are the processes of hypothesizing, then experimental testing, changing the hypothesis as required, for further generalizations to expand the scope of what hypothesis covers, and then this rigorous testing. All of those processes need to be communicated to the student so that the student can become an innovator, the student can become a researcher. Merely stating these ideas as given truths will not serve the purpose of millennial education, as that does not give the student the mindset and the skill set for further exploration and knowledge advancement, which is now being expected of everyone. So it's very, very important that we sort of make this new material with this specific explicit purpose, where we sort of recount the story, how something was hypothesized, how that hypothesis was tested, how the hypothesis got modified as a result of experimental testing, how it was then further generalized, how it was rigorously tested, how it stands. So that is something that feel needs to be given as part of the millennial education. I think with that I conclude this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Please don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give you a proper round of applause. That's Dr. Chandra Shekhar, a man at the forefront of technology. Now, sir, I think a couple of people have questions for you as well. So who's got questions for Dr. Chandra Shekhar based on what he said? Who's got questions? Show me some hands. I know that there was a gentleman there, you were writing down questions. You guys have questions? I have a question for you as well, sir, because I'm already mic'd up. I'll go with what I have. You've put up some very fascinating things. You suggested going cross-discipline, mixing humanity and diversity of perspective with a scientific method. You called for experiential learning, and you called for reimagination in the face of a changing world. I'm going to put you on the spot just for a second, and I'm going to say all these wonderful educators here, some of them are now in a very good, which is good. If I wanted to say, out of everything that you've said, when they cast their flight home, or when they go and start their education again, Could you give us 2 or 3 things that they could do straight away, immediately, as soon as they stop teaching again? How do we basically, what I'm saying is, you give us a theory, now give me a couple of lines on how to put it into practice immediately, without going to the IT department and saying, I need VR. You know what I'm saying?
I think I can recount a small little experience, and that came from a very young student who asked me, we were told in the school that zero was an invention of India, and it is a big deal. Until then, you remember, we are all told that after 9 it is 10, 1 and 0. And I set about thinking, what's so big deal about 0? And the more you think, the more you realize, and I'll sort of give you the little story. Imagine you are counting. So for every count, you want a symbol that represents the count. So either you can have a unique symbol for each count, but counts will go on. So how many symbols you will create? There would be huge number of symbols. Then of course, when we are adding things, we are, separately counted items are being pulled together and counted in a single count. That's what addition is. You have 3 things here, you have 5 things here. You have separately counted 3, separately counted 5. Now you put them together and bring them in a single count. That's addition. Now supposing our symbols were going on and on because I had one single symbol per count. So I would have a huge number of symbols, and when I put 2 such counts together, I'll again start counting, and it will take a huge number of time. What did people who invent zero do? They said any huge count can still be represented only with 10 symbols. Is not something that strikes us that arbitrarily large numbers can still be represented just with 10 symbols? That couldn't have happened unless there was 0. Because after 9, you would have another symbol like 9. Yet another symbol. So you use this. Now, how do we count? We count by tens. So we count 10, and when the count of 10 is over our fingers, I record how many times I have counted 10. That becomes tens count. So I count 1, 2, 3. When it is 10, I record that one time I have counted 10. Then, when this 10 count also becomes 10, I record one more time saying this has. So it is a hierarchical process. Imagine how easy it is to compare these numbers. A number that has more digits, you can look at it and immediately say, oh, this is a larger number. Imagine you had one symbol per count, you didn't have this hierarchical representation of counts. How would you know that some symbol zeta is greater than beta? You will again counting. You will soon run out of your mental capacity to count. It will not be there. Look at the beauty. When you add 2 numbers. Now imagine the earlier system. Imagine there was a unique symbol for 100,030, and you could still remember 100,030 symbols. And there was another symbol for 67,038, and then I said, now you add these 2. So add this symbol to that symbol, and you will be counting forever. First you count up to first symbol, then you count further up to the second symbol. No way. How easy it is to add with these. You are just adding the one space, and when it becomes 10, you pass on the carry. The addition process becomes simple. Subtraction becomes simple. Multiplication becomes simple. Division becomes possible. Otherwise, division would not even be possible. And then, when you change from decimal number to binary number, which most computer science or even 12th standard students have to do, it's very easy. You say you are counting by hierarchies of 2, not by 10. And it becomes extremely simple to tell them why computers use that binary arithmetic. Because computers are dumb. You need some dumb kind of thing for them. So what could be dumber than, when we were taught Multiplication. We have to remember multiplication table. My generation certainly did. Most principals would have, they would have memorized multiplication table. Similarly, we don't call it addition table, but we also learn addition. 3 plus 2 is 5, 3 plus 4 is 7, 3 plus 5 is 8. You had 10 digits to be added to other 10 digits, so there were 100 combinations. Similarly, there were 100 combinations in multiplication. You have 10 tables, each table had 10 entries. Look at the binary system. If you don't count by tens, but you count by twos, the multiplication table will have only 2 entries. The addition table will have only 2 entries. And even a dumb computer can do that. That's why computers use it. So what I am saying is, when you start looking at and you start explaining, it really opens up. And that sows the seeds of creativity in that child's mind. He can come up with many more ideas. He can. So I would urge that we don't. See, many things we receive as given, but we should not pass it on to our next generation as given. We should. That's what I meant when I said we should explore, we should analyze, we should look, we should internalize, we should see how they were discovered, how they were invented. If you follow that approach, we will be prepared in the future.
Beautiful. Dr. Chandrasekhar, thank you very much. I've got one more question. Hang on, I've got one more question from the gentleman here who wants to talk to you about his integration of approaches. I think we're only going to take just the one question on this one, I'm really afraid, because I have to stick to my schedule as well. But go on, sir. Ask your question, and then, of course, when Dr. Chandrasekhar comes back.
I'm very happy because you have talked to good points for the public education. But one point that still is PTA, that integrations of what you call it is science, technology, engineering and mathematics. This concept was brainchild of former President of the USA, Mr. Barack Obama. And he introduced this concept in 2010-11. And America is doing a good job in this. And it is not confined to only the higher educations. They started in school educations, particularly to make the next generation more creative. And all of us tell the students, be innovative, be creative, but we don't provide the good environment. We don't modulate our proper system, how the children can become creative and innovative. But integration of the core, like science, technology, engineering and mathematics, can be taught at school level. If they don't learn at school level.
Sorry, what's the question here?
The question is, because if they can't learn at school level, it cannot be learning of the past. The learning of the past plus innovation can create good human being. So my question, how to implement this system at school level? I'm having a lot of difficulty.
Okay, excellent. Dr. Chandrasekhar, just very quickly, please, a few brief words from you. STEM is important. The
My answer will be that if we recognize that this is indeed the way to go, then we have to build the capacity. And the capacity, we have capacity building, so it should be through seminars. But first of all, the material and the examples should be put together, and then they should be disseminated. But once there is an agreement, yes, this is the way to go, then we can begin to do all of it. My problem has been in a large section of the society, even the appreciation for this has been missing. So if we don't recognize that there is a need, we won't solve it. But building capacity is a challenge, and we have to begin, we all are in it. So whatever experience we have, like I shared one, there are dozens of that kind with me itself. There would be dozens which will be there with others. We need to put it together. Use the vehicle of ICT and train the trainers.